Hey everyone, this is Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and today we are driving an all-new model from Toyota. This is the 2022 Toyota Corolla Cross. More like cross out the word Corolla and give us an entirely new model. I'm going to give Charlie credit for that dad joke right there. But anyways, this is it. This is Toyota's new crossover that slots between the CHR and the RAV4. And just looking at this thing, it kind of looks like a baby RAV4. There's some design cues, kind of like these rear hips, the quarter panels right here, remind me a lot of the RAV4. The cladding, the sort of like boomerang shaped cladding on there, reminds me a lot of the RAV4. There are some things though that are unique. I wouldn't necessarily say that it looks like a Corolla, but we've got lots of reminders on here that it is a Corolla Cross. We've got a badge right here across the A, B, C, D, the D pillar. Is that what that's called? Side of the roof there anyways. A little bit of a sporty lip spoiler there on the back. And we've got another badge here on the taillight, and I think there's one up on the headlight too. Yep, there is. It says everywhere that it's a Corolla Cross. They don't want you to forget that. This particular car is the XLE trim. That's the top dog. We've got 18-inch wheels that are aluminum, and we also have all-wheel drive with this particular car. You can have the Corolla Cross in front-wheel drive, but luckily, seeing as though we're in Michigan, and as you can tell, the car is completely covered in salt, it's a good thing that we have all-wheel drive. Let's take a look at the back here. Oh yeah, I love to see when manufacturers give branded trunk mats. Take a look at that. And we also have a spare tire in this thing, so that is cool to see. And we've got a privacy shade. That's rocket science. No, it's actually kind of a nice material there if you want to keep your luggage private. And as you can see back here, we have a JBL subwoofer to complete our JBL sound system. And if you're curious about that, make sure to check out Charlie's review. He'll be doing an in-depth review of the infotainment and the sound system on this thing, which will be cool because this is a totally new model, so it'll be fun to find out how that is. All right, let's take a look in the interior, and let's start in the back seat. How much room do we have in the back of this Corolla Cross? All right, well, I'm a 5'11" individual, and I'm all right. You know, it's a little bit claustrophobic back here. Obviously, the seat is adjusted for my driving position, and my legs do touch the seat. It's not anything crazy, and, you know, it's not like it's a super hard material that I'm pressed up against. But the ceiling is like an inch away from my head, and I don't know, it feels a little cramped back here. Got a couple of cup holders here. That's at a nice height to rest your arm as well. I like the overall appearance of this interior. It's a little bit light, even though it's kind of claustrophobic in the back. In the front, it's light, and we'll get to that in just a second. But we have this nice mocha contrast on our creamish white colored seats, and you can see that as well in the contrast on the white cream on the top of the door panel and the mocha color here on the lower part where you rest your arm. We've also got cup holders in the doors, so that makes for a total of 4 cup holders back here, as well as your own vents and a perfect spot to plug in your GoPro down here. We've got a couple of USB ports, so that's cool to see as well. All right, well, I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and move up to the front, take a tour of that. All right, and up here, it kind of fits the vibe of baby RAV4. The steering wheel and the infotainment screen both remind me a lot of the current RAV4. We were just in one, so I've got one pretty fresh in my mind. In fact, the whole dashboard design reminds me a lot of the RAV4. We've got some simulated stitching along here. It's not actual leather. At least I don't think it is. That doesn't look like real stitching to me. But they tried to make it feel a little bit more premium in here. And I think that they've accomplished that with giving us the contrast on the dash, the door panels, and the seats. These front seats actually look pretty cool with the brown and the tan. We've got brown on our armrest as well, which is real leather. Perfect space to put your beanie if you're wearing a GoPro on your face. Normal conventional shifter down here, no dial or button setup. Let's go ahead and start this thing up. Corolla Cross. All right, anyways, what else do we have down here? Well, we've got a traction control off button, our auto stop start off switch, our parking brake, and our auto hold. We've also got wired Apple CarPlay. As you can see, it's coming up here nicely. The infotainment itself, it's all right. It's just standard Toyota. It has that weird screen texture that I'm not the biggest fan of on Toyotas, and we have our physical buttons to get us back home, to our menu, to our map, which actually when you press map, it takes you back to CarPlay. That's interesting. This car must not have an in-house navigation. It takes me right to Waze when I press maps, so that's interesting. The glove box is full of books that you'll hear sliding back and forth throughout this whole review. And look at that, we've even got branded Corolla Cross floor mats. Pretty neat. All right, well, I think that pretty much covers everything in this interior. We, of course, have a volume knob. We've got physical controls for our climate control as well. And the heated seats are switches that you have to get them in the middle to be off, and you've got a high and low setting. I like the placement of this USB port. It's just nice right there to get you plugged in for your Apple CarPlay. There's a blank switch here that I'm wondering if is for a heated steering wheel, because it doesn't have that. And it would be nice if it did have it, because we're in Michigan and it's freezing. All right, well, with most of that out of the way, why don't we take this Corolla Cross out on the road and see what it's like to drive. You can hear that parking brake releasing as we put it into drive. We don't have to press the button to turn it off, so that's pretty nice. So, powering this Toyota Corolla Cross, oh, you can hear it. We've got a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine that makes 169 horsepower and 159 foot-pounds of torque. And all that power is sent through a CVT, but this CVT is a little bit different, and I thought I was going crazy driving this car. I actually had to look this up. When you set off, it starts in a gear, and then it switches to a belt-driven system like a CVT. So it's almost like you have a first gear to start off, it shifts like a normal car, and then it's a CVT. So it's almost kind of like a 2-speed. But at the end of the day, it's still a CVT. It's not the greatest thing. I really wish that they would have given us the 8-speed automatic that we have in the RAV4. Yeah, so as you can see there, it's simulating some gear changes. The first gear change was real, and then it simulates the rest. It doesn't always do that though. It's kind of shamelessly a CVT, to where if you're just driving it, you know, if you aren't taking off fast, it just kind of sits there. I'm wondering if this is going to be one of those cases that people are going to be mad about Toyota using such an iconic and legacy name like Corolla. The Corolla's been around for like 50 years. It was a very early car for Toyota, so the fact that they're just slapping that badge on this little crossover might be a little bit offensive to some people. It's pretty slow, guys. I'm not gonna dance around that. 169 horsepower is really not the most. Also, considering that this car has all-wheel drive, it's a little bit heavier than a front-wheel drive variant would be. But how will it perform around the first corner? Will it be light and agile like the Corolla that we know and love? Let's find out. I gotta find my line through here a little bit better. No noise from the tires, that's interesting. God, this thing makes a racket. Absolute racket. And if I'm being honest, I'm not really inspired at all by the way that it drives. I mean, it's not bad. It's just car. They haven't given this car any sort of excitement or flair. Nothing about this car inspires me to drive quickly or spiritedly. But that's not really the point of this car, is it? This is a very good entry-level first car for someone that's in high school that doesn't really care and isn't really interested. Let's go over the rough ride section and see how the ride is. too bad. That's actually a pretty good performance there. Let's stop and do a little bit of an acceleration and see how long it takes to get to 60. Well, with counting in my head, that was about 9 seconds, maybe a little bit over 9. It's not fast, but it's just quick enough to be able to merge on the highway and not feel scared. Why do the tires not make any noise? It's a little bit alarming. Okay. Went around there about 53, 54 miles per hour. Not too bad. I've gone around faster in other SUVs, but this thing feels all right. The actual steering feel is not too bad. It's pretty direct. It's not numb. You pretty much can always predict where the car is going to go. The body roll's not too bad either. We of course have a little bit, considering this thing's lifted up quite a bit, but it's not too bad. All right, we've got our lane keep assist on. Let's go ahead and set our cruise control. Okay, so this is not an assist that's going to hold the car in the lane. It's just going to yell at you when you exit the lane. We've also got radar cruise. We can set our distance over here with this button. All right, let's go ahead and turn that off. System is not quite there, and a comparable Hyundai would be much better. Base price on this car, XLE with the all-wheel drive, is 27 grand, and that's really not too bad considering you get the nice wheels, you get the leather seats. You do have to option on the sunroof, and you also have to option in the JBL sound system. And as spec, this car is about 32 grand. I don't know that I would pay $32,000 for this car. I don't know that I'd buy this car, period. But for someone that's really just after a comfortable ride, something with heated seats, something that appears to be quite luxurious in the interior. I like all the color contrasts. I don't hate the exterior design. You know, it's a car. I don't think it's ugly. I think $32,000 is actually very reasonable for this car. Plus you get the peace of mind of owning a Toyota. You have all of that legacy of reliability in that Corolla name as well. I wouldn't even really say that I dislike this car, but it kind of makes me sad because presumably we're not going to have the Corolla hatch for much longer. And that's just really sad because it'll probably just end up being replaced by this thing. Nobody wants cars anymore. It's all just these silly jelly bean crossovers. I was parked next to a Corolla hatch earlier at Home Depot, and it just looks so much better. And I bet that it can do 90% of what this car can do. Sure, you have 8 inches of ground clearance, which is very similar, I believe, to a RAV4, and you can get all-wheel drive, which makes this thing a little bit better. But are you really going to be using that? I mean, if you're in the north, sure, but if you're in the south or somewhere where it barely snows, even if you are up here, I mean, unless you're doing like some crazy off-roading or if you live down a very dangerous dirt road, you can do everything that you need with the Corolla hatch. And I hope that they stay true to their word and bring us the GR Corolla hatch with all-wheel drive. To me, it's a laptop. It's an appliance. I am not inspired by it at all. But I'm not their target market. And I think for their target market, the Corolla Cross will be a success. So, good job, Toyota, for making this very car. It's very much a car. You've made a car. If you want to tone out the sound of a very loud Duramax, you simply apply the accelerator pedal, and the CVT will make sure that you no longer hear that. You blast all of the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder sounds into the cabin. All right, everyone. Well, that's going to wrap up our review today of the 2022 Corolla Cross. Hope you've enjoyed watching. It's making this very weird whistling noise. It's acting like it's turbocharged, but it is most certainly not. Maybe it's the CVT making noise. I don't know. Let's pull in here, do one last little walk around of this thing, and then that's going to wrap it up for us today. Reversing camera, yes, it's there. Meant to cover this in the beginning. We've got lines as well to guide us into parking spots. All right. Check rear seat. That's becoming a trend in all cars now. I wonder if that's a law or something. I have to put that in there. Because people are like leaving their children in cars or something. Or their dogs. All right, well, hope you've all enjoyed. Certainly not a bad car. Pretty much an appliance, a laptop on wheels, if I were to describe it. And now we know that Goodyear assurances don't squeal as well. All right. All right, well, thanks everyone for watching. This has been Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.